Kerwin, you all right? Okay. All righty. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the 43rd Ryder Cup. We're here at Whistling Straits, and we're joined by European captain Padraig Harrington. Captain, I'm going to take the leap of faith and assume you've been out on the golf course the last few hours. What are your initial impressions of what you're seeing out there and what your troops are experiencing and saying about the layout?
Yeah, I came up here about 8 weeks ago now, had a look at the golf course, and so we knew what to expect. It's in great condition. It's set up, as I said, reasonably generous off the tee, and not that it's set up this way, but the type of golf course it is, it's very difficult at times around the green. So nothing, it's exactly as expected. It's exactly as we were aware. Obviously, it's interesting playing a practice round at the moment, knowing that the wind's going to change to a different direction at the weekend. But, you know, these guys are professional players. They know what to do. They've been doing it all their life, so they can figure it out.
Was there anything different that you remembered, have seen here, that you remember from when you played in PGA Championships here?
As I said, I've been back a couple of times since then. So, not really, no. I think there's a certain flow and style to the golf course, and it doesn't matter whether you shorten the 11th and shorten the first or anything like that. The golf course has its own feel, and that's still there for sure. So, yeah, very similar to 2015.
Okay, let's begin. Evidently, Steve would like to go. Number 22.
Padraig, where did you come up with the idea for the numbers video that is getting some buzz?
This has been done before in Europe. I think certainly the Lions were famous for starting it out, and it was obviously, when you're looking for these teams, this is a theme that the European Tour came up with, and I was very comfortable and happy to buy into it and believe in it, and it's really worked out very nicely, as you would have seen in the video. But just looking at like we have a wall with the Roll of Fame of who've played, and being able to look at those names and go through it. 164, it's just startlingly small amount of players. Obviously, you can blame Lee Westwood for that, for playing 11 times, like, and Sergio as well. But yeah, it's a small group of people. When when you think 580 people have gone to space, and 5,870 people have climbed Mount Everest, it's incredible that there's so few who've played in the Ryder Cup, and it makes it very special. For the players to know that they have a place in history. It can never be taken away from them. They will always have a name on that wall, and it's for me myself, I'm up there 121, so it's nice for me to look back and remember, remember the person I was, as a Ryder Cup player, and for these current players, obviously they're experiencing it. The three rookies. It was extra special for them to be added in, and they had their moment to stand up and received the applause of everybody that they're new to this. So it was a lovely way to start the week. We have more.
All right, over on your right, number 5. Go ahead.
Padraig, do you and Steve have any agreement or contingencies in place in case any player shows up with a COVID issue?
Yes, there is. There's lots of protocols. I assume the captain's agreement is public, is it? Yeah. So there's just like an injury name in the envelope, there's a COVID name in the envelope. It's still, while we've asked, it's still not completely clear what happens when if, God forbid, we had a COVID outbreak of a number of players, but for one player it's pretty straightforward. Obviously the first 2 days it's 4 players sit out, I'm sure, so there's no issues on those 2 days, but obviously on Sunday you start losing a few players to COVID, it does affect the match in some way. So, but one is in a COVID envelope for sure.
We're going to go to 7 right behind him.
You mentioned the wind. Would you like to see it blow quite strongly once the match starts?
We're all golfers, and somebody like myself who's been brought up and traditionally in a windy, linksy store. We like a bit of wind, but we're not asking for it to be everybody blown off the golf course. So a little bit to test us. What was there today was very nice, but we're not. I've got a group of great ball strikers. I don't want them blown off the golf course. So I'm very comfortable with what we saw today, but not looking for any more. And I think my guys are good enough anyway. If there was no wind, as I said, they're familiar playing golf around the world, and the quality of their ball striking is right there. So no, we're not depending on a windy week at all.
Right behind me, Rex, number 20.
Just to follow up on Eamon's question, so if on Sunday, if you had more than one player go down with either injury or COVID, you're still not sure how that would be handled?
No, there's a injury envelope, there's a COVID envelope. We haven't quite clarified exactly what the position is, how many is too many with COVID, no.
So there would be more than one player's name in the
There's
COVID.
an injury envelope and there's a COVID envelope, so that's two separate envelopes at this stage. Maybe the same name as in both envelopes. So that's as far as I'm aware at this moment. And while the other issue is actually quite a detailed and complicated issue and is possibly above the pay grade of the two captains, how many would be, how many. And this is why we have the COVID protocols. It's not like it's an individual event, whereas if you lost a player in an individual event, while it's not great, it's certainly you don't want to be catching COVID, but in a team environment, you don't want a number of people catching COVID because it affects the actual match. So this is certainly something that I'm sure that is causing a lot of thought and a lot of time thinking about what would be too many and what would be sustainable. But again, it's not really for the captains. It's more for the running of the event.
Straight back again, Jeff, number 23.
I was going to ask about how the practice round went, but on the COVID issue, are you? How do you decide who goes in that, and is the person required to be in the envelope on site? Are they a assistant captain?
Yeah, well, it's the exact same as an injury envelope. The person who goes in the envelope, the captain decides, and nobody ever knows. And we hope that stays the way. But we've had a few injury pullouts over the year, so it would be just very similar to that. No real difference in how it works. As I said, it is possible that you could have two different names. I don't see why that would be the case. But you could have somebody pull out with an injury. You could have somebody with COVID. So, yeah, you have to be prepared for these things. And as I said, it's been there all along. So it's nothing really new. It's obviously highlighted because of COVID, but there's always been a name in the envelope for an injury. Just like, coming into this, we were asked to be aware that, having somebody as a reserve, somebody as a backup, who you would bring along, and what happens if somebody pulls out because of COVID, because it's something that could happen in these times.
On your left, captain, number 19.
So Patrick, you talked yesterday about Sevi. Sergio was here this morning. Do you think Sergio with John Ram could have the same energy that was with Sevi and Chema at some point, and the same kind of success?
Wouldn't I love that? That would be, it's hard to believe that you could have the same energy as Sevi and Jose over the years. I think the biggest picture in the champions locker room is of Sevi and Jose. So yeah, they're iconic when it comes to the Ryder Cup in Europe. I wouldn't ask anybody to live up to that. But if they came close, it would be nice. And certainly, that would be an interesting partnership that maybe I should think about. Thanks for the advice.
Do you think it's an extra incentive for the European team to have guys playing together for their country, not just for the team?
No, I don't go in for that sort of stuff. That was something that was done, 30, 40 years ago. Oh, two guys from the same country, they should play together. No, if they're the right partnership, in terms of if their games suit, if they are at the right time in their careers. When I started out, I played with Paul McGinley in the World Cup, and we won the World Cup very early on, 1997. By 2001, we couldn't play together. we were so bad as a partnership because the dynamic in '97, he was clearly the captain of that ship, and I did everything I was told. By 2000 and 2001, you know, I had matured as a golfer, and there was a little bit of friction about, I think we should do it this way. And but then again, we came good again in the Ryder Cup because things moved on. So it's just not automatic just because you've got the same background, same. You know, it can come down to just the age profiles and the timing of their career, whether they're a great partnership or not.
Straight across here, number 4, Michael.
Thank you, John. Patrick, you've been around Steve. You've known Steve Stricker a long time. Can you cite something memorable you've seen him do and something memorable you've heard him say?
Yeah, clearly I've known Steve a long time. I think what's most memorable when you think of Steve is he's a nice guy, but he's tough on the golf course. You know, you got to remember what's behind that. He's a perfect gentleman. He's exactly how you would want a golfer. He's somebody who goes out there, plays his golf, strong, real tough out there, but is very straight about it. I think the fact that he came back from the driver yips in the late 90s, you know, that says everything about a person. You know, golf is a pretty tough game, but when you get a setback like that really knocks you, to come back and be a world-class player after that is a very impressive person and golfer.
Again on your right, number 5.
Padraig, Brooks Koepka recently in an interview made it sound like playing in the Ryder Cup is a bit of an inconvenience, whereas Rory came in here and said that we get along, we play for each other. Do you have a theory on why it comes more naturally for the European side?
I think in Europe we definitely have a very common goal. I alluded to this yesterday. You know, it's very much the Ryder Cup is our way of asserting Europe's position in world golf, the European Tour's position. I think that was Seve's goal back in the 80s, and we carried that on. And I think that brings us together. I think we obviously work very hard, things like the Make It Count video and the numbers to create that atmosphere. You know, so it's just something that we want to do, we're keen to do. I think it also helps that some way when we travel a lot, you know, from outside of Europe, maybe just to the States or to other places, there's somewhat of a, you know, we're outsiders and we're again trying to prove ourselves. So I think there is an element of all of that put in together that we're here to you know, give credibility, I suppose, to the European Tour and the European players. And we definitely have as I said, we definitely have the ground roots of Europe behind us. You know, everybody in Europe starting out the start of the year in the European Tour believes they have a chance of making the team. And, you know, that really is, when you have that sort of support, it's easier for the team to work together, play together. And to be honest, as I said, you know, my team at the moment, they're just it's the atmosphere is exactly where you would want it. Literally, I don't want to mess it up from here. That's why I'm sort of at this position. So yeah, it's not just me though. It's all our Ryder Cups, all the past, starting. We tend to look back to Seve. Obviously, it started before Seve, but Seve is the one we will use. All those teams gone before us has led to this situation, and the players know how important it is to play in the Ryder Cup, to play and win the Ryder Cup, and how important it is to be. Look, they just love being a team too. You know, a lot of this might be an interesting one too. Like, you know, a lot of the guys on my team, you know, a lot of the Europeans, they seem to want to be team players. You know, where they, you know, Shane Lowry thought he was going to be a Gaelic footballer. Sergio thought he was going to be a soccer player. So a lot of them have that team background that they nearly crave more so than the golf. So this is their opportunity for it. And like, you look at somebody like Sergio, continually going around to the players and just having a quiet word and saying things behind. Like, he just nobody relishes being in this team more than Sergio, and what he does behind the scenes just is really very special.
Scott on number 1.
Padraig, you've leaned very heavily on the shoulders of some very experienced players that are the bulk of your team. Do you see young guys on this team that are being groomed to take over that role and who can naturally step into that when these other guys that, who've been doing it for so long are gone?
I do believe there is a nice natural succession in Europe. The players I see in the middle of their careers now, just slightly less in the middle of their careers, they've got great role models in the experienced players, and they see what they do. And yeah, I think Europe is in a very strong place going forward in terms of that. There is a nice, clearly we have the top end experience, but there's a nice succession coming along. Players who are prepared, who want to take responsibility and want to have that leadership role, whether it's just in their foursomes or four-ball match or in a bigger situation in the whole team.
We're going straight across again, number 3, Daniel.
Without divulging any state secrets
or
specifics, how many of your pairings decisions are locked by now, or how many are based on what you kind of see and feel in the practice rounds this week?
Some people play well in practice, some people don't play well in practice. You can't pick guys after 3 years and expect the practice rounds determine what goes on the Friday. So no, I'm not a great believer in judging people off a couple of relaxed days practice. So no, my picks are definitely based on the right partnerships, what we would have had in mind, but narrowed down now, and as we've got here, narrowed down even further. So I wouldn't think a lot is changing in my head and my vice captain's head between now and Friday. No.
Number 8, Phil.
I was going to ask you something very similar, Padraig, so this leads nicely into it. Can you think of, therefore, of an example as a player or in your experience as a player or vice captain where a pairing has come out of completely left field late on in the week?
Plenty. Sure, my first Ryder Cup in '99, I got told late Thursday that I was playing foursomes with Miguel Angel Jimenez, and that really was an afterthought because Jose felt he wasn't playing well enough. They were going to play the two Spanish together, and Jose didn't feel like he was playing well enough for foursomes, so I was thrown in there late. So very, very, and that really was late. I said it was late Thursday or Thursday afternoon, not far off when the team was going in. So there's been plenty of incidents like that over the years. I don't think it happens as much now, but clearly circumstances, lots of things can happen in terms of circumstances. So that's why the team sheet goes in Thursday evening, just to allow for those changes. But I think mine and the vice captains were pretty set at this stage, and we have a fair idea of what we want and what role we want each player to play.
Obviously, I can go back and look up the result, but did you win?
We were pretty good, yeah. I think we got a half point the first morning. Disappointing. We were a very tight match second day and lost, but we were actually a good partnership, yes. But he didn't actually. He hit the first tee shot, which is always a very nice thing for. I think we were both rookies too, so that was an interesting one.
Okay, I think we're going to hit one more here, number 6. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Padraig, Rory was in here earlier saying that he thought it has become progressively harder to win a road Ryder Cup. The stats may seem to bear him out. I think 2004 was the last time a visiting team had a lead going into Sunday. Obviously, Medina kind of flipped things around. Do you agree with what Rory said? And if so, what's the reason? Why is it getting harder?
I think, obviously, you've got the fans. I think more to do with the home setup is a big part of it. Clearly, the home captain gets a choice in how the golf course is set up, and he's going to do everything he can in that setup to get it to favour his players. So I think that has a big effect on it, to be honest. Just really the setup of the golf course and you know, you can set a golf course up to be tough, or you can set a golf course up to be, you know, loads of birdies, as in any week on tour. So, but the home captain gets to make that decision, and I think it has a big influence. I think if you were coming, you know, traditionally certainly it'd be tough to beat the US on their home style golf course, and as we've done in Europe, we've shown it's pretty damn hard to beat us if we're picking one of our courses that's naturally suited to our game. So it really is about picking the right venue, and also then you know, styling that golf course to suit your players.
Follow up: are the players that different now? I mean, the game is so global.
I would suggest not anymore. They are merging much more into you know, much more so. I think they're the best players in Europe are the same as the best players in the world, is the same as the best players in the States. So it's not like it's not as different. But in '99, I had to be introduced, or Payne Stewart introduced himself to me. I'd never met him. So, you know, and there was others in the team like that. So that's not the case now. Players are very familiar nowadays, and familiar games, that have played all the conditions, you know, that can be presented. But, you know, there's still a difference in terms of, you know, you can play as much links golf as you like, but you never compete quite as well as somebody who was brought up playing that way. So there is that natural element that's, let's say natural, it's that element that's been learnt over a long time that is going to play into the hands of a home team per se.
Thank you. Captain, thanks so much for your time today. We'll look forward to speaking with you again tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.